The shuttle descended slowly through the thick atmosphere of Zeta 7, its thrusters glowing bright as they fought against the pull of gravity. Inside, the team of 4 humans sat in silence, their eyes glued to the viewport as the planet's surface came into view. The world below was unlike anything they had seen before. Vast plains dotted with towering crystalline trees that shimmered under twin suns, rivers that glowed faintly with an inner light, and skies filled with strange flying creatures. Captain Ryan Carter adjusted his seatbelt and glanced at his crew. To his left, Dr. Laura Bennett was already jotting down notes on her data pad, her brow furrowed in concentration. Across from them, Jake Miller leaned forward, his face pressed close to the glass, a wide grin spreading across his features. Emily Dawson, seated beside him, rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her own excitement as she checked the readings on her scanner. "This place is insane," Jake said, breaking the quiet. His voice carried a mix of awe and mischief. "I mean, look at those trees. They're like something out of a dream. Or a nightmare," Emily muttered, tapping her screen. "We don't know what kind of dangers are lurking down there. Those trees might be carnivorous for all we know," Ryan chuckled softly. "Let's not jump to conclusions just yet. Our mission is simple: establish contact with the Valens, gather data, and avoid trouble. Got it?" Jake raised his hands defensively. "Hey, I'm always careful," Laura snorted. "Careful? You once tried to pet a venomous snake back on Earth because you thought it looked cool." "That was one time," Jake protested, though he couldn't suppress a sheepish grin. "Besides, it didn't bite me." "It almost did," Emily added dryly. The shuttle touched down gently on a flat stretch of land near a dense forest. As the engines powered down, the hum of machinery faded, leaving only the sounds of the alien environment, strange chirps, distant roars, and the soft rustling of leaves that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Ryan stood up first, grabbing his gear from the overhead compartment. "All right, everyone suit up. Remember, this is uncharted territory. Stick together, stay alert, and no unnecessary risks." He shot a pointed look at Jake, who shrugged innocently. Once outside, the team took a moment to take in their surroundings. The air smelled sweet, almost floral, though it carried a metallic tang that made Emily wrinkle her nose. The ground beneath their boots felt spongy, like walking on moss, but it gave slightly with each step. Above them, the twin suns cast overlapping shadows, creating an eerie yet beautiful effect. "This place feels alive," Laura murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. She knelt to examine a patch of glowing grass, her gloved fingers brushing against the delicate blades. "Every little thing here seems interconnected." Jake wandered a few steps ahead, peering into the forest. The trees loomed over him, their crystal-like trunks refracting light in dazzling patterns. Between the trees he spotted movement, small creatures darting between roots and rocks. Some were bird-like, with iridescent feathers, while others resembled insects, but moved with surprising speed. "Hey, check these guys out," Jake called over his shoulder, pointing at a group of tiny hopping animals with multiple legs. They froze when they noticed him, their large eyes reflecting the sunlight. "Don't scare them off," Laura warned, joining him. She pulled out a small container and carefully collected a sample of soil nearby. "We need to document everything we can." Before anyone could respond, a deep roar echoed through the forest, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Everyone froze, turning toward the source of the sound. Through the trees, they caught a glimpse of something massive moving in the distance. Its silhouette was unmistakable, a hulking figure with broad shoulders, long limbs, and a tail that whipped behind it like a whipcord. "What is that?" Emily asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ryan raised his binoculars, scanning the area. "That's our apex predator, Krylok, according to the intel we received before landing." Krylok emerged partially into view, stepping out from behind a cluster of trees. Its scales shimmered in shades of green and gold, catching the light in ways that made it seem almost ethereal. Its head was elongated with rows of sharp teeth visible even from afar, and its golden eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence. It moved with a grace that belied its size, every step deliberate and calculated. Jake let out a low whistle. Now that's a beast. Stay back, Ryan ordered sharply, raising a hand to keep the others behind him. We don't want to provoke it. But Jake wasn't listening. He took another step forward, his camera already in hand. Come on, Captain, this is incredible. Imagine getting footage of this thing up close. You're too close, Laura hissed, grabbing his arm. Do you have any idea how dangerous that thing could be? Jake hesitated for a moment, torn between caution and curiosity. Reluctantly, he allowed Laura to pull him back, though he kept his gaze fixed on Kraylock. The creature paused, tilting its head slightly as if sensing their presence. For a heartbeat, it seemed to lock eyes with Jake, and he felt a shiver run down his spine. Finally, Kraylock turned away, disappearing deeper into the forest. The tension eased, though none of them relaxed completely. We should keep moving, Ryan said after a pause. The Valon settlement isn't far from here. Let's focus on making contact. As they resumed their journey, Jake couldn't shake the image of Kraylock from his mind. There was something mesmerizing about the creature, something primal and untamed. He found himself wondering what it would feel like to stand so close to such raw power, to truly understand it. Little did he know that thought would soon lead him down a path none of them could have anticipated. The team pushed forward, their boots sinking slightly into the spongy ground as they made their way toward the Valon settlement. The forest around them grew denser, the crystalline trees towering higher and casting long, fractured shadows. Strange noises echoed through the air, chirps, growls, and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures moving just out of sight. Despite the beauty of the alien world, there was an undercurrent of tension, a constant reminder that they were far from home and surrounded by unknown dangers. Jake lagged behind the group, his mind still fixated on Kraylock. He kept glancing over his shoulder, half expecting the massive predator to reappear. Each time he did, Laura shot him a disapproving look, but she didn't say anything. She knew better than to distract him when he got like this, lost in thought, chasing some reckless idea that only he could see. Focus, Jake, Ryan said without turning around. His tone was firm, but not unkind. We're almost there. I'm focused, Jake replied quickly, though his wandering gaze betrayed him. Just keeping an eye out for trouble. Emily snorted. You mean you're daydreaming about riding that thing again, aren't you? Jake grinned sheepishly. Maybe. Can you blame me? It's not every day you see something like that. It's also not every day you get eaten alive by something like that, Emily shot back, adjusting the strap of her scanner. Let's try to avoid making history as the first human snack on Zeta 7, okay? Before Jake could respond, the forest opened up into a wide clearing. In the center stood a cluster of structures unlike anything they had ever seen. The buildings shimmered faintly, appearing almost liquid in the sunlight, and seemed to shift and change shape depending on the angle. Surrounding them were tall poles topped with glowing orbs, casting a soft light that pulsed rhythmically. And then there were the Valons. They emerged slowly from the structures, their movements fluid and deliberate. Tall and slender, their translucent skin glowed faintly, with shifting patterns of light that danced across their bodies like living constellations. Their eyes were large and almond-shaped, reflecting the colors of their surroundings. They wore simple garments made of woven plant fibers, adorned with intricate designs that matched the bioluminescent patterns on their skin. Ryan raised a hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Hello, he said, enunciating clearly. Beside him, Laura activated the translation device strapped to her belt. The machine hummed softly as it processed the sounds emitted by the Valons, converting their language into English. One of the aliens stepped forward, a figure taller than the others, with brighter, more complex patterns flowing across its form. This had to be their leader. Through the translator, the alien spoke. You come from the stars, the voice said, smooth and melodic. Why do you walk among us? Ryan cleared his throat, choosing his words carefully. We are explorers. We seek knowledge and understanding. We wish to learn about your people and share our own. The leader tilted its head slightly, studying them with an intensity that made Jake shift uncomfortably. I am Kalor, the alien continued. Leader of my kin, You bring no harm? No harm, Ryan assured him. Only curiosity and respect. Kaylor's glowing patterns shifted, signaling approval, or so they assumed. He gestured for the humans to follow him, into the settlement. As they walked, Laura whispered to Ryan, "This is incredible. Their bioluminescence might actually be a form of communication." "Stay focused," Ryan murmured back, though he couldn't hide his own excitement. "We'll have time for analysis later." Jake, however, wasn't paying attention. His mind was elsewhere, replaying the image of Krelok in his head. He glanced toward the edge of the clearing where the forest began again. Somewhere out there, the massive predator was roaming free, untamed and wild. The thought sent a thrill through him, one he couldn't quite suppress. As the group settled into a discussion with Kaylor and several other Valens, Jake's restlessness grew. He tried to listen as Kaylor explained their culture, their reverence for nature, their belief in balance, and their deep connection to Krelok, which they called the spirit of strength. But the words barely registered. All he could think about was seeing the creature again, getting closer to it, understanding it. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. While the others were distracted by the conversation, Jake slipped away, disappearing into the shadows of the forest. He told himself it would only be for a few minutes. Just a quick look. No harm done. The forest swallowed him whole, its strange noises wrapping around him like a blanket. He moved quietly, following the instincts that had served him well during countless expeditions. It didn't take long to find signs of Krelok, broken branches, claw marks on tree trunks, and the faint scent of musk lingering in the air. His heart raced as he crept forward, each step deliberate. Then he saw it. Krelok lay sprawled in a patch of glowing grass, its massive body rising and falling with each breath. Its golden eyes were closed, its tail draped lazily over its side. Up close, it was even more magnificent than Jake had imagined. The scales shimmered like molten metal, and the sheer size of it made him feel small and insignificant. For a moment, he simply stared, awestruck. Then, without thinking, he took a step closer, and another, and another. Krelok's eyes snapped open. Time seemed to freeze as the predator locked onto him, its gaze piercing and intelligent. Jake froze, his breath caught in his throat. For a split second, he thought about running, but something held him in place. An instinct, a challenge, or maybe just sheer stubbornness. Instead of fleeing, he did the unthinkable. He climbed. Krelok roared, a sound so loud it shook the ground beneath Jake's feet. The creature surged, too, its feet thrashing wildly as Jake scrambled higher, clinging to its ridged back with everything he had. The world blurred as Krelok bolted forward, crashing through the forest with terrifying speed. Back at the settlement, chaos erupted. Kaylor's glowing patterns flared violently as he shouted, "You can't ride that beast." His voice carried a mix of anger and disbelief. The other Valens looked on in shock, their expressions unreadable. Ryan turned to Laura, panic flashing in his eyes. "Where's Jake?" Laura scanned the area, her face pale. "He must have gone after Krelok. We need to find him. Now." Without hesitation, the team grabbed their gear and set off into the forest, following the trail of destruction left by the enraged predator. Kaylor joined them, his movements tense and urgent. As they ran, the weight of the situation settled, heavily on their shoulders. Not only was Jake in grave danger, but their fragile relationship with the Valens hung in the balance. Somewhere ahead, Jake clung desperately to Krelok's back, his heart pounding as the creature charged through the wilderness. He didn't know if he'd survive the ride, but one thing was certain. He had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Jake held on for dear life as Krelok thundered through the forest, its powerful legs pounding the ground with each stride. The world around him became a blur of colors and shapes, shimmering trees, glowing plants, and streaks of sunlight filtering through the canopy. The predator's body moved with a ferocity that left Jake breathless, every muscle rippling beneath his grip. His fingers dug into the ridges of Krelok's scales, his knuckles white from the effort. At first, all Jake could think about was survival. Each jolt and twist threatened to throw him off, and the roar of the beast echoed in his ears like an endless storm. But as the adrenaline surged through him, something unexpected began to happen. Slowly, he started to notice patterns in Kralok's movements. The creature wasn't just running blindly. It was navigating the terrain with precision, leaping over fallen logs and weaving between trees with calculated grace. For a brief moment, Jake loosened his death grip and shifted his weight, slightly. To his surprise, Kralok didn't buck or thrash to shake him off. Instead, it seemed to adjust its pace almost as if it had accepted his presence. For now. Jake's heart still raced, but a spark of curiosity replaced some of the fear. He dared to glance down at the predator's massive head, watching as its golden eyes scanned the surroundings with sharp focus. The ride continued for what felt like hours, though it might have only been minutes. Eventually, Kralok slowed to a trot, and then came to a stop near a rocky outcrop overlooking a vast plain. Jake slid off cautiously, his legs trembling as they touched solid ground again. He stumbled backward, putting distance between himself and the beast, half expecting another attack. But Kralok didn't lunge or growl. Instead, it turned its head to look at him, its glowing eyes unreadable. Jake stared back, his chest heaving as he caught his breath. For the first time since climbing onto the predator's back, he allowed himself to truly take in the moment. Here he was, standing face to face, or rather face to snout, with one of the most fearsome creatures on Zeta 7. And yet, it hadn't killed him. Not yet, anyway. Okay, Jake muttered under his breath, more to himself than to the creature. This is different. He took a cautious step forward, raising his hands slowly in a gesture of peace. Kralok watched him intently, its tail flicking lazily behind it. When Jake reached out to touch its snout, the beast let out a low rumble that vibrated through the air. It wasn't a growl of aggression, but something softer, almost like a purr. Back in the forest, Ryan, Laura, Emily, and Kaylor were racing, against time to find Jake. They followed the trail of destruction left by Kralok, their boots crunching over broken branches and trampled grass. The Valen leader's glowing patterns pulsed erratically, a sign of his growing frustration. "This is madness," Kaylor said through the translator, his voice tight with anger. "No one rides Kralok. No one. We're not here to cause trouble," Ryan replied, trying to keep his tone calm despite the urgency of the situation. "We just need to bring our friend back safely." Kaylor shook his head, his translucent skin shimmering with agitation. "If Kralok accepts him, it will be because the spirit sees worth in him. If not..." He trailed off, leaving the implication hanging heavy in the air. Laura glanced at Ryan, worry etched across her face. "Do you think Jake knows what he's doing?" "I doubt it," Ryan admitted grimly. "But knowing Jake, he's probably figured out how to make things worse." As they pushed deeper into the wilderness, the landscape changed. The dense forest gave way to open plains dotted with jagged rocks and glowing streams. In the distance, they spotted movement, a hulking shape silhouetted against the horizon. Kaylor pointed toward it, his expression grim. "There," he said simply. The group quickened their pace, their exhaustion forgotten in the face of their goal. When they finally reached the base of the rocky outcrop, they froze in disbelief at the scene before them. Jake was sitting cross-legged on the ground, mere feet away from Kralok. The massive predator lay sprawled beside him, its head resting on its front paws as it watched him with an intensity that bordered on fascination. Jake was talking quietly, his voice barely audible over the wind, gesturing animatedly as if explaining something to the creature. "What in the universe?" Emily whispered, her mouth hanging open. Ryan stepped forward cautiously, his hand hovering near his weapon. "Jake, are you insane? Get away from that thing." Jake looked up, startled, and scrambled to his feet. "Wait, don't shoot, it's okay, he won't hurt me." Kaylor approached slowly, his glowing patterns shifting rapidly. He studied the interaction between human and beast, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "You have done the impossible. Kralok has chosen you." "Chosen me?" Jake repeated, confused. What does that mean? It means you are marked by the spirit, Kaylor explained. Few can approach Kraylock without being torn apart. Fewer still can ride it and live. You have proven yourself worthy. Laura exchanged a glance with Ryan, both of them struggling to process what they were hearing. So, we're not in trouble? She asked hesitantly. Kaylor hesitated, his patterns dimming slightly. Trouble remains. This act challenges the balance of our world. But if Kraylock accepts you, then perhaps there is meaning in this. Jake scratched the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. I didn't mean to cause problems, I just wanted to understand it. Ryan sighed deeply, pinching the bridge of his nose. Of course you did. Over the next few days, the team worked to repair the damage caused by Jake's reckless actions. Laura and Emily collaborated with the Valons, sharing knowledge about Earth's ecosystems in exchange for insights into Zeta-7's unique environment. Ryan spent hours speaking with Kaylor, working tirelessly to rebuild trust and ensure the mission could continue. Meanwhile, Jake spent most of his time with Kraylock. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. He learned to read the creature's moods, recognizing when it was restless or content. In return, Kraylock seemed to tolerate and even enjoy his company. By nightfall, Jake would sit beside the predator, staring out at the glowing horizon as the twin suns set in a blaze of colors. One evening, as the others prepared to leave the settlement for further exploration, Jake lingered near Kraylock. He placed a hand on the creature's side, feeling the steady rise and fall of its breathing. You're something else, you know that? He murmured softly. Thanks for not killing me. Kraylock let out a low rumble, its golden eyes closing, briefly as if in acknowledgement. Though the journey ahead remained uncertain, one thing was clear. Jake's impulsive decision had forged a connection unlike any other, and whether it was a blessing or a curse, only time would tell. The days passed in a blur of activity as the team worked to mend the rift caused by Jake's reckless actions. The Valons, though still wary, began to open up more to the humans. Laura and Emily spent hours with their alien counterparts, exchanging knowledge about ecosystems, plant life, and sustainable practices. Ryan continued his discussions with Kaylor, focusing on building trust and ensuring that the mission could proceed without further complications. But while the others focused on diplomacy and science, Jake remained consumed by his bond with Kraylock. Every morning he would slip away from the group and head to the rocky outcrop where the creature had taken him days earlier. There, he would spend hours observing Kraylock, its movements, its habits, even the subtle shifts in its glowing eyes. Over time, he learned how to interpret the predator's body language. A flick of its tail meant irritation, a low rumble signaled contentment, and a sudden stiffening of its posture indicated danger nearby. Kraylock, for its part, seemed to tolerate Jake's presence willingly. It no longer roared or thrashed when he approached, and it even allowed him to touch its scaly hide. On occasion, it would nuzzle its massive snout against him, sending vibrations through the ground beneath his feet. To Jake, it felt like a gesture of acceptance, a sign that he was no longer just an intruder but something close to a companion. Despite this growing connection, tensions simmered among the crew. Laura often voiced her concerns during their nightly meetings. Jake's getting too attached, she said one evening, pacing back and forth in their makeshift camp. This isn't just some pet project, that thing is dangerous. I know, Ryan replied, rubbing his temples. But we can't exactly drag him away from it, not after what happened. Emily chimed in, her tone measured, but firm. It's not just about Jake. The Valons are watching us closely now. If anything goes wrong, if Kraylock turns on him or if Jake does something else reckless, it could ruin everything we've worked for. Ryan nodded grimly. I'll talk to him again. Make sure he understands the stakes. But when Ryan approached Jake later that night, he found him sitting beside Kraylock, staring up at the twin moons that bathed the landscape in silver light. The predator lay sprawled nearby, its chest rising and falling steadily as it dozed. For a moment, Ryan simply stood there taking in the surreal scene before speaking. Jake, he began, his voice low so as not to startle the creature. We need to talk. Jake glanced over his shoulder, then patted Kralok's side gently, before standing. What's up? Ryan crossed his arms, his expression serious. You're playing with fire here. This isn't just about you anymore. Our relationship with the Valens is fragile. One wrong move, and we could lose everything. I get it, Jake said quickly, though his tone lacked conviction. But you don't understand what it's like. Kralok, it's like nothing I've ever seen. It's smart, Ryan. Really smart. And it trusts me. That's the problem. Ryan shot back. You think you've got this under control, but you're forgetting what Kralok is, an apex predator. It doesn't care about trust or friendship. All it takes is one bad day, and you're dead. Jake frowned, his jaw tightening. Maybe. But I can't walk away now. Not after what we've been through. Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. He wanted to argue further, to remind Jake of his responsibilities to the team. But he knew it wouldn't change anything. Once Jake set his mind on something, there was no stopping him. Instead, he settled for a warning. Just be careful, all right? Don't do anything stupid. As the days stretched into weeks, the uneasy peace between the humans and the Valens held steady. But trouble came unexpectedly one afternoon when Jake and Kralok were exploring near a riverbank. The predator had been unusually restless that day, pacing back and forth as if sensing something amiss. Jake followed it cautiously, his instincts telling him to stay alert. Suddenly, a deafening roar shattered the quiet. From the trees emerged another Kralok, a rival male, larger and more aggressive than the one Jake had bonded with. Its scales glinted menacingly in the sunlight, and its golden eyes burned with hostility. It charged forward without hesitation, targeting Jake's Kralok with brutal intent. The two predators collided in a flurry of claws and teeth, shaking the ground with their ferocity. Jake stumbled backward, his heart pounding as he watched the battle unfold. His Kralok fought fiercely, lashing out with its tail and snapping its jaws, but the rival was relentless, driving it toward the edge of the riverbank. Stop, Jake shouted instinctively, though he knew neither beast could understand him. Panic surged through him as he realized the fight was putting both creatures, and himself, at risk. Without thinking, he grabbed a flare from his belt and ignited, it waving it wildly in the air. The bright red light caught the attention of the rival Kralok, which paused mid-attack to glare at the source of the distraction. Seizing the opportunity, Jake's Kralok lunged forward, knocking its opponent off balance. The rival stumbled, its footing faltering as it teetered dangerously close to the water. Seeing his chance, Jake hurled the flare directly at the rival, forcing it to retreat into the trees. With a final defiant roar, the intruder disappeared into the forest, leaving behind only silence. Breathing heavily, Jake turned to check on his Kralok. The predator stood tall, its chest heaving as it recovered from the fight. Slowly, it lowered, its head until its snout was level with Jake's face. For a long moment, they stared at each other, man and beast locked in mutual understanding. When the rest of the team arrived, alerted by the commotion, they found Jake sitting beside Kralok, his clothes torn and dirt-streaked but otherwise unharmed. Kaler stepped forward, his glowing patterns shifting rapidly as he studied the scene. You have done the impossible once more, the Valen leader said, his voice tinged with awe. Not only did you aid Kralok in battle, but you also drove away its rival. Such courage is rare. Ryan didn't share Kaler's admiration. His face was pale with anger as he confronted Jake. What were you thinking? You could have been killed. I wasn't going to let it die, Jake shot back, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. It saved me once, I owed it. Laura and Emily exchanged worried glances, knowing that Jake's actions had put them all in jeopardy. Yet, as they looked at the bond between human and beast, they couldn't deny the significance of what had just transpired. Kaler placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder, his glowing patterns softening. Perhaps this is a sign, he said thoughtfully. A new chapter in the story of our world, and yours. Though the immediate danger had passed, the incident left a lasting impact on everyone involved. For Jake, It solidified his connection with Krelok, proving that their bond was stronger than anyone had anticipated. For the team, it served as a reminder of the delicate balance they walked on Zeta 7, a balance that hinged not just on logic and science, but on trust, courage, and the unlikeliest of alliances. And as the suns dipped below the horizon, casting the land in hues of orange and purple, Jake sat quietly beside Krelok, knowing that their journey together was far from over. The days following the battle between the two Kraloks marked a turning point for both the humans and the Valens. The rival predator had retreated into the wilderness, leaving Jake's Kralok victorious but weary. Its injuries were minor, scratches and bruises from the fight, but it moved with a slower, more deliberate pace as it recovered. Jake stayed by its side constantly, tending to its wounds as best he could with supplies provided by Emily. He cleaned the cuts carefully, applying salves that Laura had mixed using local plants recommended by the Valens. As Kralok healed, so did the relationship between the humans and their alien hosts. Kaylor declared Jake an honorary member of the Valen Society, calling him Rider of Kralok. This title carried immense weight among the Valens, who viewed Kralok not just as a creature but as a symbol of strength, survival, and balance. To them, Jake's bond with the predator was proof that the human spirit shared those same qualities. Laura and Emily worked tirelessly to document everything they had learned about Zeta 7's ecosystem, focusing especially on Kralok and its role in maintaining harmony within the environment. They discovered that the predator's presence kept smaller creatures in check, preventing overpopulation and ensuring the health of the forests and plains. Their findings reinforced what Kaylor had told them earlier. Kralok was sacred to the Valens because it represented the delicate equilibrium of their world. Ryan, meanwhile, focused on repairing the trust between his team and the Valens. Though Kaylor no longer seemed angry, Ryan knew that one misstep could undo all their progress. He spent hours speaking with the Valan leader, discussing ways to ensure peaceful coexistence if humans ever returned to Zeta 7. Kaylor listened, intently, his glowing pattern shifting with curiosity and approval. Despite these efforts, tensions lingered within the human group. Laura often voiced her concerns during their nightly meetings. "We've made strides with the Valens, but Jake's connection with Kralok is still risky," she said one evening, her voice low but firm. "What happens when we leave? Does he stay here, or does he try to take Kralok with us?" Emily nodded, adding, "And even if he stays, how long can this bond last? Kralok is a wild animal. It might turn on him someday." Ryan sighed deeply, leaning back against a tree trunk. "I don't have answers yet, but we'll figure it out before we go." Jake, however, wasn't thinking about leaving. His days revolved around Kralok, whether it was helping it recover or simply sitting beside it as they watched the twin suns rise and set. He felt a sense of belonging he'd never experienced before, not just with the creature but with the planet itself. Zeta 7 was harsh and untamed, but there was beauty in its chaos, a rhythm that felt natural and true. One morning, as the team prepared to depart, Kaylor approached them with a solemn expression. "It is time," he said through the translator. "Your shuttle awaits." Ryan nodded, offering a respectful bow. "Thank you for your hospitality and wisdom, Kaylor. We will honor what we've learned here." Kaylor turned his gaze to Jake, his glowing pattern softening. "You have earned a place among us, Rider of Kralok. If you choose to remain, you are welcome." Jake hesitated, glancing at Kralok, who stood nearby, watching silently. The predator's golden eyes seemed to pierce straight through him as if waiting for his decision. For a moment he considered staying. Life on Zeta 7 would be unpredictable, dangerous even, but it would also be raw and real in a way Earth no longer was. But then he looked at his teammates, Ryan, Laura, Emily, and saw the weight of responsibility in their eyes. They needed him, and deep down, he knew he couldn't abandon them. I can't stay," Jake said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "But I won't forget this place, or Kralok." Kaylor nodded slowly, understanding passing across his features. "Then go with our blessing. May your path always lead you back to where you belong. The farewell was bittersweet. As the team boarded the shuttle, Jake lingered outside, kneeling beside Kralok one last time. He pressed his forehead against the creature's snout, feeling the warmth of its breath against his skin. "Take care of yourself, big guy," he whispered. "You're stronger than anyone gives you credit for." Kralok let out a low rumble, its tail flicking gently as if in acknowledgement. Then, with a final glance, Jake climbed aboard the shuttle, his heart heavy but full. As the engines roared to life, the team strapped in for the journey home. Through the viewport, they watched Zeta 7 grow smaller beneath them, the glowing rivers, the crystalline trees, and the vast plains fading into the distance. Jake stared out the window until the planet disappeared entirely, replaced by the endless expanse of space. For the others, the mission had been a success. They had gathered valuable data and forged a tentative alliance with the Valens, but for Jake it was something more personal. He had faced danger, formed an unbreakable bond, and discovered a part of himself he hadn't known existed. Days later, as they approached Earth's orbit, Ryan broke the silence. "You okay, Jake?" Jake smiled faintly, leaning back in his seat. "Yeah, just thinking." "About Kralok?" Laura asked softly. "Yeah," Jake admitted. "About Kralok, and everything we left behind." Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did good out there. Better than any of us expected." Jake chuckled dryly. "Doesn't mean I'm not going to miss it." No one spoke after that, each lost in their own thoughts. The shuttle descended toward Earth, carrying 4 humans who had ventured far beyond their world and returned changed forever. Though they had left Zeta 7 behind, its lessons and the memory of a shimmering, golden-eyed beast would stay with them for the rest of their lives. And somewhere, light years away, Kralok stood atop a rocky outcrop, gazing up at the stars.